Hello, everyone. Leon back here again. Now we are in episode 233 of the Leon Great podcast. Normally, I don't ever do a follow up on anything that I've done on the past episodes, but however, just the exception, I figured I'd do this because, as I'm sure many of you know already, yesterday, end of life support is over for Windows 10. And looking back where we're seeing right now, because I remember I've used Windows 10 for a couple years, and I had it installed from via Windows 7 through Windows 10. However, I will say for my experience, of course, every experience is very, very different from everybody else, which honestly, I didn't think I would ever say this though, but I've always, this is how I always felt, is never take the experience away from people and give some extra life support for 10. Now, I've always felt that way too because when you think about what's happening on the Microsoft camp, it's really shitty right now. It's in a very shitty place, and I don't even think they're going to turn the clocks back at this point because they're going to go full AI on whatever happens next. And believe me when I say this, I don't think they're going to hold back on their AI products right now. Look, say what you want about AI, but I don't believe the whole OS should be integrated through artificial intelligence. I think it's bullshit. Let's put it this way too, because I do think that you are forcing people, or the amount of people that doesn't want to use AI integration. So I wanted to go over something that I have to say though that I similarly relate to one of my good old friends on this blog that he wrote on this, and so looking over, and I am going to heavily consider making the switch from Windows 11 to Linux. So, by the way, for those of you that are wondering that have I used Linux before? Yes, I have. Back in 2000, I would say, yeah, 2013. Yep, 2013. And I remember I was just a hardcore nerd back then, just going over, just tinkering up different things, having the ideas of having some control of my life. And you know what? And I've started to use open source or open software much early on, but then I decided I wanted to get into Linux. Why? Well, I wanted a different experience than just Windows, and that's just for me. I saw the foresight what was happening, and early on, I know Windows Vista really hit a nerve on me, and decided, you know what, I'm going to make a switch. Why the hell not? So today I want to go over one of my good old friends' blog, Michael J. Burgess, or online known as Be It Me Not You, and his blog Be It Me Not You .online. So in his article, I'm going to go over why I moved to Linux, my journey to privacy, freedom, and control, and similar situations from between me and my longtime online friend right there. So before we begin, let me go ahead and give you guys the quick words of my sponsor today. Today's sponsorship is brought to you by Zenny Optical. Now, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I have talked about Zenny Opticals in the past, which definitely want to give you guys something to go about, because Zenny Opticals is amazing glasses which I wear all the time, and I'm currently wearing my current Zenny glasses. One of them I've had for a couple of weeks and still works great. And if you are wondering, this is it just for blue light protection? No, Zenny does it all, and I have to say though, I am a proud person that does have a good, years with them, and I've sponsored with them, worn them, and pretty much I've been sponsoring them for a few years now, and uh, I am glad I am. Which I will say right there is, if you want a good pair of your own, go ahead, check the link down below into the description. Oh, and then next, where I want to mention another thing, which is Humble Bundle. I've been partnered with them for a good while right there too. And if you want to find good things, when especially inexpensive software, you most certainly can, for games, for books, or whatever that may be. Humble Bundle is the place, and plus of all the funds that you purchase through Humble Bundle, will go to good causes, and also good. It's good for creators like me, myself too. So check it out down below, and all the affiliates and sponsorships are down into the show notes in the description. All right, back into the main show. All right, guys. So go ahead and check out one of my friends' blog on this, and believe me, when I've read this blog, it is really well written, and something I've have to say that it's just a really good written blog. Of course, no AI slop, of course. I This is something I wanted to do and bring. So I've this is something I want to share to you guys, which is called "Why I Moved to Linux," and his story is just like a lot of people's story. And when I've gone through the whole YouTube rabbit hole, is why I switched from Windows to Linux, and a lot of people have had similar concerns, or there could be a lot of people's stories from Mac to Linux, vice versa as well. Because I noticed that whole trend of people getting away from the Windows environment altogether and moving to Linux. And let me tell you something right there too. Like, I've gone through literally 25 videos yesterday on YouTube, and checking out the people's experience, why they want to get away. And to me, while I can say that Mac, on the other hand, has some good things to go about and say about on their side, but I don't think it is any better, really. If you look at the bigger picture, because I've used Macintosh for a couple years. Let me tell you one thing: it isn't as any better or as Windows, or like say vice versa. Windows is any better than Macintosh at all, because it's just really, if you think about it, these two companies are just want to they just want, what they want best is your data, and data is their currency. To know every single user, which honestly I think it's completely none of any company's business to data mine you. And the way I see with Windows 11, it's just another step in the wrong direction, and I am looking forward to getting away and moving away from the Windows environment. However, even though Windows, people can still technically use Windows 10, the end of support. Of course, it's not safe to do so, because there will be vulnerabilities and hackers. Which, again, I will say that if you do use Windows 10, still, even afterwards, use it responsibly. That's all I can say right there. So, reading on here, it says, after years of frustration with Windows and Mac OS, I finally switched to Linux. This is a story of how I took back control of my computer, my privacy and performance, to freedom and trust, and why Ubuntu turned out to be the perfect choice for everyday use. Which, by the way, that was my very first Linux OS after I believe after Vista as well, which I think it was one of the best decisions during that time. And I said, screw Windows Vista, because I knew there was that clear telltale sign when Windows 8 came out. That's when I had my frustration started. I said, oh, screw Microsoft. But of course, back then, a lot of people didn't had that eagerness or frustration, and people just took it right from the rim of the butt. So anyways, here in the introduction, which says, for years I put up with constant updates the ads hidden inside the operating system, the sense that my computer was no longer mine. I click later. Another force Windows restart and feel that quiet irritation that every modern user knows too well. Yeah, same frustration too. The truth is, I've been fed up for a long time. I didn't know where to go. Mac OS never appealed to me, partly because of Apple's pricing and lockdown ecosystem, partly because of how hot their thin machines tend to run. Very true. Yeah, that's why Mac in all places they may look pretty on the outside, but on how hot that can get internally, yeah, I just don't trust it too. Same goes with me. I want something different. That's something that respected my privacy. That didn't treat me like a data source or a customer to be endless upsold, which is correct. When I agree with this blog 100%. And here, that's why I think this is where I was felt so fed up even then to encourage me to move to Linux. Now, however, I had to end up switching back to Windows because I had to work remotely on a everyday job as a contractor for a company called Comcast. As some of you may know, Comcast is a ISP, which of course, if you do work for like a big Fortune 500 company or a contractor, then unfortunately you will be forced to use Windows software. That's just the unfortunate part right there. And even if you are working with any other company, a lot of companies will you'll be forced to work on a Windows environment. That's just the way these companies are. They're not going to move away to open source, which is very much sad but true. So continue on the blog. So I switched to Linux, not as an experiment, as a full replacement. I wiped Windows completely and installed Ubuntu Linux on my desktop and PC. And in doing so, I discovered not just a different operating system, but a whole different philosophy of computing. And continue on, it says, what is Linux? And so he goes on just a description of Linux, which says, if you've never used it, the word Linux might sound like a niche tech thing reserved for programmers or hackers in films, but Linux is everywhere, which is correct because Linux is run everywhere. And now, those of you that don't know, like for instance, Android is part of the Linux environment too. Your smart fridge is part of Linux. Your TV software is part of Linux. Now you got other facets of devices being run on Linux, and who knows? The U.S. satellites are run by Linux. So yeah, there are tons of hardware being run on Linux still today. Even there's still Linux servers out there. So that's still amazing right there too. We definitely do need a Linux in our life for sure. And which here continues on. It's the invincible backbone of the digital world, the software running most of the internet, all of the top supercomputers, and billions of Android devices. At its core, Linux is an open source operating system. That means its code is public. Anyone can study it, improve it, or build on top of it. This openness is what sets it apart from closed systems like Windows and Mac OS with Linux. There is no corporate secrets. You can see exactly how it works. But Linux isn't a single product you can buy in the box. It's a foundation, a kernel that different communities built upon to create what are called distributions or distros. These distros package the Linux core with a desktop environment, applications, and updates, giving you a complete OS. And because anyone can build one, there are hundreds to choose from, which is correct. Because the way I could describe my analogy, like for instance, my analogy, I know a lot of people have so many different analogies with Linux, but it's my analogy is like picking a whole different flavors of ice cream. So many to choose from, but you always want to try all of them, from butterscotch to pecans to vanilla, chocolate, strawberries, uh, butterscotch, whatever that may be. There's so many flavors of an ice cream to choose from, and my favorite personally is cookies and cream. Okay, don't hate the cookies and cream guy. I just love cookies and cream. All right, but regardless, I think there are so many flavors to choose from when it comes to anything. Yeah, that's how I spin it right there, which is flavors of different ice cream, and Linux is no different. So I want to mention that as well. And these distro packages the Linux core with a desktop environment, applications, and updates, giving you a complete OS. And because anyone can build one, there are hundreds to choose from. The many faces of Linux. So he describes this right there, which here it says each Linux distro is like a different flavor of the same recipe. They're all share the same base ingredients, but the presentation, interface, tools, and philosophy can vary widely. Some are minimalist, built for speed or old hardware. Others are polished and beginner friendly. A few examples: Ubuntu, my choice, reliable, very well supported, and ideal for newcomers, which is correct too. That's what I like about Ubuntu, because it's beginner friendly as well. And also, not to forget, Mint is designed the same way. But if you are used to the Windows design, then Linux Mint, it'll be one that will be familiar for you and your taste and your layout of your environment. So Mint is another option too. Debian, which he says the rock solid foundation that Ubuntu itself is built on. Fedora, loved by developers who like staying close to cutting edge. And then Arch Linux for those who want to build everything themselves from the ground up. Now, I've chose Ubuntu for me because I felt it was just a very easy operating system to get by, and I figured, hey, it looks pretty friendly. I love it, and a lot of people back then, I remember checking on forums and so on and so forth, that people said that Ubuntu was a good start, and I decided to pick on that for the first time as well. And continuing on, that the very is the beauty of Linux. It's not one company dictating how your computer should feel. It's a whole ecosystem shaped by its users. You choose your environment, you decide what's installed, you decide how much or how little to trust, which is very correct. What Linux is used for. When people hear Linux, they often picture a line of codes and black terminal screens, but Linux quietly powers more of modern life than most realize. This is very true, because people think that this is a machine for advanced users and terminal users, which is not all that true at all, because nowadays it's it goes for everyone else too. So if you just want a simple GUI instead of the command based one, you can always just use the GUI. And I would say that I was scared of using Linux over a decade ago, and I felt that in my 20s. It's like, oh man, that doesn't look like something that I would ever use. But then for a while there, I got so used to it too. And the best part, even when I've used Linux in the past, I think even with my old Intel machine, and I believe I had Radeon installed back then to Radeon's graphics, which, by the way, it worked absolutely well, because I know people that had run within so many issues with NVIDIA in the past with most Linux OSs, but today it's really not the case anymore too, because NVIDIA is now supported on all Linux OSs, so you're not going to run into that problem nowadays too. So yeah, and it runs over 96% of the world's web service, the system that keeps the internet alive. It's the operating system behind Android phones, routers, smart TVs, and even your car's fundamental system. It runs every one of the top 500 supercomputers on Earth. And beyond the data centers, the labs, it becomes more common in ordinary homes too. Yeah, so just like me, for example, I'll be running Linux. I would say within the next few days, all I need to do is back up my shit, and then I can get the process going. However, I am one of these people that do game time to time as well. So the question is that will most of the new games that do come out will work day one, or will I have to wait a little longer too? So these are questions I have personally when it comes to it, the environment, because I believe Steam came out on the Linux environment a couple years ago. Still, this is something I want to know as well. So continuing on, for many people like me, now use Linux on their personal computers for browsing, writing code, and even gaming. For some, it's about cost. Linux is free. For others, it's about freedom from ads, subscription, and forced updates, which all three I can say is I can relate with that. This is why I want to leave the environment. And Windows 11, like currently in my system, is no different. And that's why I'm so sick of the decisions from the top, very up top, and I'm just gonna go and say, screw it. And like even yesterday, one of the things I can say to all of you that I did make the decision into looking up used laptops on eBay, or look into a Raspberry Pis, because I'm just fed up with the Microsoft Windows environment altogether. It's really to a point that, am I gonna stick around where if I cannot do the basic things, and even there's been people from other blogs that talked about cutting off local accounts on future updates, and I believe they may have just done this already, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, guys, you guys let me know on the comments on YouTube, or email me too, because I'll have the emails open for everybody too. Anyways, leonlegreat@protonmail.com. So if you happen to know if you're not able to create local accounts, let me know, because I do think Microsoft is cutting that feature off, which for me that's a no go right there. Why are you cutting the option for people to not create other local accounts onto their machine? Makes no sense. And that's why if I have a guest in my account, or a guest coming over to my house, and they want to use my computer for some reason, why can I not create a guest account for them, or a second account for people that want to use the computer to browse or print something out? Please let it make sense. Why everything has to be online? Because I don't think everything should be online. If you're creating an operating system, and when I say a PC, I mean this is your own personal computer. You do what you want with your computer, and these major companies like Microsoft is getting away with this. It's absolutely unbelievable. And you know what? And I've been hearing a lot of commentators, online commentators, talk about this. Some ordinary gamer have talked about this as well, because you're really the product. You are not a customer anymore too. Just because you may not be paying for Windows altogether, but at the end of the day, you are paying a price, which is your privacy, your data altogether too. And this pisses me off with Microsoft right there too. And this blog right there, it's not really that long of a blog right there, but I definitely recommend people reading on this too. And the key features, I would say, number one is openness and ownership. Let me go over here what my friend Michael J. Burgess says. Windows and macOS are closed ecosystems, which is correct. The code is hidden, controlled by corporations. You trust Microsoft or Apple to do the right thing, or do you accept that you can't see what's going on under the hood? I do believe people should have that power to look under the hood. If like, let's say if I own the car, I want to know what's what's underneath the engine of that car, for sure. Linux is the opposite. It's open to inspection. The code that runs your system is freely available. Bugs and vulnerabilities are fixed by a global community, not hidden behind NDAs. That openness also means no price tag. Linux is free, no license fees, no product keys, no subscription enhancement. And this is absolutely correct. And this is what we needed is ownership. Number two, data and privacy collection. Do I have to say this really? And which I agree with number two on this one. And and for one, let's go ahead and get down to the details. Is Linux doesn't do this. No telemetry, no hidden trackers, no forced online accounts. When you install Linux, it doesn't ask you to sign in with a Linux ID. It just works quietly, privately, and locally. For someone who values digital privacy, that difference is massive. 100% agree too. So that's why I liked about number two. So, and that right there is why I see this too. Then number three, ads and bloatware. This one still amazed me. We now live in a world where the operating system itself shows ads. Oh, and bloatware is another problem I find with Windows, is that it's still an issue today. It's terrible. Very much terrible. And as I'm going over on the blog right there and seeing the contrasts where things are right there, and just as I mentioned everything about on this article right there, and to me, I'm doing the same thing, which I am going with Ubuntu as my operating system, and I don't see anything wrong with making a switch and doing that as well. Now, I will say for anyone that is having second thoughts about it, not ready to make the jump, or not even sure about making the jump, which I have to say is Linux, the Linux community can be a very open community. But then at the same time, the way I see with the Linux community can be divided up in so many pieces, especially how people love their mints, their Ubuntu, Fedora, and there's so many of that community as well, that there's always that whole division about what is better, what is a better distro. And I will tell you, as someone that have gone through distribution viewing, and even though I have not considered myself a distro hopper myself, because I couldn't even tell you about my journey on distro hopping, because I've never hopped in and jumped on board with so many distros, because I've only stuck with Ubuntu, because that was a very clean interface when I first had Linux. Now, would I consider distro hopping at some point? Yeah, I'd probably do it and separate that in partition if I need to do that. So again, I would jump into it, and if I had the option, I'd do that too. Now, for many of you guys are just still comfortable with Windows, I'm not here to judge you, right? I would not want to judge anybody, because I'm sure all of you are on that. You're just there on the surface level. You guys are very comfortable with what you've been using for a long time. Again, as someone that I would say remains particularly on the Linux community, and actively follow Linux news, the Linux, anything that has to do with Linux coverage. Listen, I'm part of that as well, and if you have to use your own personal computer for work, I'm not here to judge you. I really am not, because if you really need to work on whatever you need to, that's absolutely fine. And if you're not ready to fully commit to Linux, then I totally understand. I will say for any of you guys, is it's easy for anyone to put Linux onto your own USB stick, and you could always give the operating system a try without having to fully install it into your current system. Because Also, you also have to consider is your system uh, will more than likely needs to be backed up to a flash drive, a huge hard drive, or to the cloud. Because technically, will I will tell you is that there is no saving your things. Because let's say if you have your current operating system in a M.2 M.2 drive or any hard drive you've installed it on, look, I get it. I mean, you don't want to have to fiddle around, go through all that frustration of moving of so many things at once. And I'll tell you is that when I had jumped into Ubuntu many years ago, my first Linux distro, is that right there. It was easy. I didn't have to commit to working in another job, but then at the same time, I felt very free and getting away from uh, the Windows ecosystem altogether because I just don't want to be in line with the Microsoft, the clutches of Microsoft, and that's something I felt I wanted to get away and do something. And for me, I loved that I did use it for a whole year, give it a chance, spend some time with it too. But and then also you have to realize is that like I've said before, not everything is terminals and command lines. You do got a GUI for you to go about, look into the icons, and do all that as well. And in fact, installing programs are very easy nowadays because you have your own app stores on Ubuntu, and that makes things quite easy. And look, if you guys are doing professionally, let's say Photoshop, look, it's not going to be available on Linux, but if you are well technically inclined, you can always use alternatives like Photoshop or another Photoshop alternative like GIMP or Blender, whatever, right? There's a lot of alternatives you can go past it too. So look, I would say that I'm not going to be here to judge anyone if you do plan on making the switch. At some point, I am, right? Because I just got so much to go over with my things, and while the good thing is I have most of my games on a separate drive, on the D drive, so I'm not all screwed. So I do have something that will back up all my games that I've put in over the amount of time I've had. So I've had to use too, because I know for you guys it may not be the most reasonable thing to jump into the next operating system because for one, that's going to be another learning curve. And instead of having to go through, let's say, a C drive, D drive, they have different directories names for on Linux. What you ever see on Windows, because we've been so used to, we've basically been so adjusted and so used to the Windows environment altogether, is that we didn't feel that we had to make a switch. But then now I look now is, do I want to stick around forever on a Windows environment? The answer is no. But if you need to have to use Windows for any particular reason, then I would say fine, get another hard drive and do boot your system, and you can use one for work and the other one for your leisure. And I would say the other downside is with Linux is, well, if you are going to do boot your system, I would say a smart thing for anyone to do, well, is go and purchase a new hard drive, install into your system, and once you install that hard drive into your system, then you might want to just go about it, and once you're done installing your system, install Linux altogether and make sure that you're able to boot your current version of Windows and Linux too for your spare time. Because what I've understand from so many people going through my video hopping on YouTube, going about researching Linux again in 2025 is if you are partitioning uh, Windows and Linux on the same drive, you have to consider one thing is that any Windows update will corrupt the partition that you create. What I come to find out, and that's why if you're going to partition anything, make sure you partition it into your own risk, and not because it's a bad thing for anyone to do, but I find that if you happen to get an update onto your computer, a recent Windows update, remember is that your Windows may end up screwing your system. So it's best to check things out and keep an eye for it too. Not gonna put you guys down because not to encourage anyone not to partition, but just remember that as well too, because there are risks when it comes to partitioning a drive. So just a footnote in advance as well. And then secondly, I would point out the philosophy of Linux is that whatever operating system that you choose, first of all, just pick what you can. I don't care if it's Mint, Ubuntu, Fedora, Red Hat, Arch Linux, or whatever that may be, or Bezel, or the big thing I've been hearing online is called Cache OS, which that's based on Linux. So remember, that's another option that you can give that OS a chance. Now, I don't know much about Cache. The fact that I've been hearing it from so many tech creators online on YouTube, especially Gamer Nexus, Linus Tech Tips talked just a little bit about it. I don't know if he's fully committed to Linux on board with Linux. And then Jay 2 Cents have talked two videos on the topic of Linux, so it's great. You see a lot of big tech creators talking about these options, and that's why I've been going through like options like say Raspberry Pi and having Ubuntu or any operating system to install on the Raspberry, which that's another option for you guys to have. If you decide you want to go for a different system, or if you can't afford, let's say, a computer with more power, with a CPU that runs like a killer machine, all I can tell you is, may probably stick with a Raspberry Pi. That'll be another option for you guys too. So again, that's another thing you might want to go over if you decide you want to try out Linux in your spare time too. And then making sure that I will not want to discourage anyone or put down people who are still using Windows, because unfortunately you got to use it, because let's say if you're working like in the bank industry, medical sector, or the top 500 Fortune companies, or even the government. Because I know here in the U.S., all around the U.S., is that they rely on Windows still. So that's a key feature I wanted to mention. And lastly, right there, there's a closing thought I wanted to mention on this article, which he says right there, which I have to agree with this last closing thought, which Michael says here. Closing thoughts: I didn't move to Linux because it was trendy or edgy. I moved because I was tired of being treated like a customer inside my own computer. Linux gave me back something simple but rare in today's tech world: ownership. Exactly right. It's not perfect. It takes patience, curiosity, and willingness to learn. But once you cross that line, you start to see how freeing it is. Use a system that doesn't exploit you. If you ever felt the same frustration with the constant ads, the tracking, the feeling that your machine isn't really yours, try Linux. You can test it from a USB without changing anything on your current system. You might discover, like I did, that you don't just get a new operating system, you get a new relationship with your computer. And once you feel that freedom, it's very hard to go back. And that last thought, closing thought, is perfect, because that's why I feel that when you get in a brand new relationship onto your computer, you're gonna realize one thing is your experience will be exactly different from what you've had before, and that's where the beauty comes in with these machines and operating systems, is that everything runs very, very differently, very differently compared to the last one. This may not be the best analogy to add right there. Now, if you had this relationship with that one partner right there, and he or she continues to fuck you over, that relationship may not want you. It may not even go well long term. And you have to also ask yourself, why continue that relationship when you know that toxic relationship will continue to go spiraling down? And that's the same. That's the analogy I have with operating systems like both Mac, Apple's Mac's operating system, and Windows OS from Microsoft. And this is a bad relationship you ever want to stick around. Now, that's not to say that if you have to stick around for a period of time and to deal with them, sure, you might want to deal with them too. And then on the side notes, if you have to get away from your bad ex, the best thing about it is that you can cut them out and go for a brand new partner that she will not nag you for the rest of your life. And the best part is that there is no contract between you and that person. And that may be the worst kind of analogy for it to send in this computer, but that's the best part I have is, first of all, if you have this psycho X that is snooping around your wallet, your photos into your phone, basically this is like the worst kind of person you would ever spend time with, and it's like Microsoft's intrusion to your privacy. And first of all, you've never asked a big corporation, a corporation evaluating over $3.5 trillion to snoop into your shit. And that's the issue I have with these companies like this. It's like your worst ex, and you're enabling her to get into your crap, and she's asking questions like, who is this person? And you know what, I don't think all people are bad intrinsically, but then it comes to a point that they become very untrustworthy and they get into your very own business. Sure, if you're in a marriage situation, that could be far from it too. And that's why I like Linux, because it you don't have no contract with that person. And probably the other worst analogy is you can, if you don't like that operating system, break up with them and try something different. Or like the previous analogy I've said in this podcast is just go ahead, switch up different flavors, and if you don't like that flavor, try something different. And that's why I love going to ice cream shops like Marble Creamy Slab, that local one, or even the other one I'm thinking about is Haagen-Dazs. If you want to try an ice cream, then you can ask the ice cream parlor to get you a sample of that ice cream. And if you like it, then they can put a scoop for you. Which that's the beauty of Linux, is that you have choices to pick. Okay, that's the bottom line. And however, if you guys get upset with that crazy ex-girlfriend or crazy boyfriend analogy, then I don't know what to tell you. You guys may not like that fun crazy analogy I have in my head, but believe me, this is what companies do. They will become your worst nightmare, or even your worst ex. And that's the problem, is that you've enabled them for so long. And let's say if you decide to get into this crazy relationship, let's say on a subscription based level, first of all, and let's say if you're on a contract, and let's say like a business contract, Windows is like that too, unless if you're signed up to work for that company. This is the part I don't like with Windows, is that that contract can last for years, and you cannot break away with them unless if you're working on some sort of business level. So that being said, too, if you have any thing you want to add right there too, like I've said, you can always email me over on leonlegrade at protonmail.com, which that's where you can email me and let me know what you think about Linux. On the other hand, what do you like about it and so forth too. Or you can comment down below on my YouTube channel, on my YouTube page. What do you think about Linux? And if you've had tried Linux in the past, like I've had, what is your favorite operating system? Have you distro hopped? Yeah, I'd be curious to hear you guys what you think about the operating system. But with that said, let's go ahead and close the podcast, because I've gone through it too long. Because like I've said, I have a very busy week, and I do want to see if I can make the switch happen for me coming up, moving on forward. So, guys, thank you so much. Let's get this conversation going. I hope I can bring more awareness with Linux in future episodes, because it's going to be to a point that if you want to make something happen, get more programs supported on Linux, the best thing to do is be more effective. Get your development ideas on Linux. Be supported on the Windows open source, and don't just support like the closed ecosystems like Apple and Microsoft. Make an effort to bring your ideas. Create an experiment with Linux, so that way the Linux community will continue to be vibrant. Because the last I've checked with Linux on a stat counter is the highest user base that's been in the personal computing space. That was back in June of 2025. Linux operating system have rose up to 5%. So we're between 4 to 5% with user base. Now, will we ever see that climbing up further? I hope, because as long as there's people are looking to get involved with the Linux community and open source, then we can make it happen. All right, everyone, that is it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the talk. But like I've said, let's continue this conversation going. If you want to hear more on Linux topics and what you want me to talk about, write them down in the comments down below. And this is Leon LeGray signing out. I'm out of here. Have a good one. Bye.